Well, I really believe I'm not a remarkable person, but I really do believe I had a remarkable life and continue.
That's great. That's great. um, I want to ask you about your early days. We want to talk about your early days in Iowa.
How many decades ago? Quite a few decades
You
ago.
can tell us
All right.
about how your parents taught you the wow of life. How did they teach you that?
In fact, that's my favorite word. Did you know that? Wow. For everybody, I cannot say how important it is to see and hear and feel the things that you can. Einstein was wonderful when he said, you can look at life in two ways. You can look at it as if nothing is a miracle, and you can look at it as if everything is a miracle. And that's what my parents taught me.
How?
Perhaps by their own manner of living and facing problems and challenges and fun, which is around us all the time. It's wonderful that I grew up where I did in the Middle West because we had the ability to hear concerts, to go to plays. We had all these facilities around us, but I was a small town girl. When I was in 7th grade, my parents sent me to a farm up in the northwest part of Iowa where my cousin was and had married a farmer. And they sent me there to learn about life. And I learned about life. I'm not sure I wanted to do it again. And then I sort of made up my mind I wasn't going to marry a farmer. The very first evening I was there, this cow bellows all evening, actually giving birth to a calf. Well, that was a learning situation for me. I'd never been around a cow for one thing. Mm-hmm. I probably didn't even know how a cow gave birth to a calf. Well, several nights later, interestingly enough, a sheep gave birth to twins, but the sheep died. And so here were these cute little twin lambs, and they gave me the responsibility of feeding with a bottle. And I remember that so well. And I thought, well, you know, it's not so bad. This is fun. However, the next night they were teaching me how to pick eggs, and they called it pick eggs to setting hens. I didn't know what picking them meant, but that meant that I put my hand underneath the hen and got the egg. But the very first hand I put under the first chicken, I got pecked. And then I decided, for sure, I didn't want to live on a farm. 6 weeks, it was 6 weeks of very interesting, and Mother had sent me with probably at least 20 or 25 books. So my recreation really was that. But it was a beautiful experience, and I've never regretted it.
Now, you were talking about your mother was a librarian?
Yes.
Okay, tell me a little
43 years. She founded the library, actually. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in the library, between the library and the newspaper office. But my father was on the committee that established the library and got it approved. And then they started out very modestly and grew and grew and grew. And Mother was alone, actually. She was the librarian. And they were open 3 days and 3 nights a week, so that's where I was babysat often. I learned how to open books. I learned how to take new books and put them on the shelf. I knew the Dewey classification system when I was, I think, in 5th grade. But that led to my work in college. On my father's side, I'm a direct descendant of Josiah Bartlett, who signed the Declaration of Independence. On the other half of the side, my grandmother and grandfather were immigrants from Norway. So she came as she'd married an older man, and at the time they'd had the Chicago fires, and he was a contractor, and they came from Norway, and came to Chicago, and then some of the other people had come to Iowa in the wintertime by way of sleigh, and so they actually settled in Story City because they were in Iowa, because there were others who had come that far. And believe me, when her husband died, that was my grandfather, because I never knew him. He died long before I was born. In fact, when my mother was just a child. And she was left with many, many children, and tenacious she had to be, with a demand that her children did not speak Norwegian, that they had to learn English immediately, and that Norwegian was not spoken in the home. And you see, I'm one who believes that English is our language. One of the things that I must say is that my great levelers were my mom and my dad, because I was in a lot of competitions. Even when I was in 5th grade, I played in a piano competition at Simpson College, which was outside of Des Moines. And then in my junior year in high school, I won the state piano contest. And so consequently, that brought a lot of attention. But they believed me. They said, "What's the next project?" It's sort of like my report cards, because I always got straight A's, and my dad said, "Don't they give A pluses?" But they were my levelers, and then they saw to it that when I got married, I married a leveler.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Which is very important.